about when the day ends and the night begins. Okay? The first important yesod, which everyone agrees to, is that there's a period called Bein Hashmoshes. Bein Hashmoshes, the twilight period, is a period when it's Sofek Yom, Sofek Laila. Right? It's unclear if it's day or night. That period of Bein Hashmoshes lasts for what the Gemara calls Gimel Ruva'i Mil. The time it takes to walk 3/4 of a mil. We're taking it as 13.5 minutes, even though there are different opinions exactly how long it is. We're going to take it as 13.5 minutes.
Is a mil the same as a mile, or just happens to have a similar name?
It happens to have some. It could be they come from the same source.
Right.
A mil is approximately a kilometre. A mil is 2,000 almas. A mil is 2,000 almas, which according to the Shiv of Chaim Noah, each alma is 48 centimetres, it comes to 960 metres, which is just under a kilometre. 3,000 is just slightly more than that. So this Bein Hashmoshes is 13.5 minutes. According to other shittas, it goes up to 18 minutes. Between about 13.5 to 18 minutes is this Bein Hashmoshes twilight period. The question is, when is this twilight period? When does it start? When does it end? It starts with something called Shkia and it ends with something called Tzeis HaKoichovim. But what does Shkia mean and what does Tzeis HaKoichovim mean? Okay, so we said that Shkia, the first shit is what's the Shittas HaGo'onim, or the shit of the Gro, the Vilna Gaon, which is that Shkia is when the sun sets, which we defined as when the last part of the ball of the sun disappears beneath the horizon. That's Shkia Lefi the Gro and the Go'onim. And that Tzeis HaKoichovim for them will therefore be 13.5 minutes after that. And then, whereas this is according to Shittas of Rabbeinu Tam, Shkia is not the setting of the ball of the sun, it's the setting of the last rays of the sun, which is 58.5 minutes after Shkia, after our Shkia, what we defined as after the Vilna Gaon Shkia, and then Tzeis HaKoichovim is 13.5 minutes after that, which is 72 minutes. Okay. Again, the 72 minutes again is based on based on the fact that the 72 minutes is really 4 mil. 4 mils. So again, it depends how long you take as a mil. Therefore, the Shittas of Rabbeinu Tam, you could take it even as a bit later than that. Again, we're trying to simplify things. We simplify it and just take a mil is 18 minutes, 3/4 of a mil is 13.5 minutes. So again, we have, when the sun sets, it's Shkia according to the Gro. 13.5 minutes later we have Tzeis HaKoichovim according to the Gro. After 58.5 minutes after the sun setting is Shkia Shnia, which is Shkia according to Rabbeinu Tam. Now it starts Bein Hashmoshes according to Rabbeinu Tam. Meaning, until Rabbeinu Tam, even though it was very, very dark outside, it was still Yom, still called daytime according to Rabbeinu Tam, until the Vadai day, until this 58.5 minute period elapses. After 58.5 minutes is now Bein Hashmoshes, it's now the twilight period is now Sofei, until 72, and that's Vadai night according to Rabbeinu Tam. Okay? We mentioned that to explain how it works, why Tzeis HaKoichovim according to everyone is 3 stars. So we asked, how can they be arguing about when 3 stars come out? Just go outside and have a look. So we answered that the time when, if you would go outside and have a look and really decide that you can see 3 stars, comes really to something like 30 to 40 minutes after Shkia, right? In Eretz Yisrael, right? And we mentioned that's actually the time that we use for Motzei Shabbos, that time, right? Whereas, but we explained that according to the Gro, you can justify this 13.5 minutes because if you define large stars as the Koichvei Leches, the moving stars, which are the planets, otherwise known as the planets, meaning Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. Those are the big planets you can see, which are bigger than any of the stars we can see. You define large stars as those stars. The medium-sized stars would be the largest of what we define as stars. And those, for an expert who knows where to look in the sky, he will be able to see them somewhere in that period of 13.5 to 15 minutes after Shkia. He'll be able to see those stars. Okay? And to justify Shittas Rabbeinu Tam, to explain why does he only see 3 stars so much later than when we see them, we explained that he would define 3 stars in the western sky. The western sky, it takes longer to get dark because that's where the sun sets. So he says that three medium-sized stars have to be seen not anywhere in the sky. It has to be seen in the western side of the sky, and that takes longer because it's lighter. It takes longer for it to get dark, and that would take 72 minutes. Okay, so we explain them. Yes.
Is there any situation in which a person will hold by the Gra for Motzei Shabbos? That is to say, the 3 stars are out 13 minutes after Shkia. The sky is still light. Right. Is there any situation where a person would use that for the end of Shabbos?
Other than Pikuach Nefesh?
Because
Nefesh doesn't matter. You can be in the middle of Shabbos.
Right. I've never seen anyone willing to be maker that much. Right. I mean, for Mariv on Motzei Shabbos, people have a Mariv after that time. Right. After in Yerushalayim, after 20 minutes, it's any day of the week, whether it's during the week or Shabbos, they'd have a Mariv after 20 minutes.
Right.
But they wouldn't do Melocha until the Zman on the Luach.
Right.
Again, as we said, if it's a really real pressing need, meaning Pikuach Nefesh, it doesn't matter if it makes Shabbos. And it's also pressing because Shabbos is so strict. It's Chayiv Kores, therefore we don't want to be more maker than.
So the minimum people would hold would be 40 minutes after.
As I said again, the 13.5 minutes depends on what time of the year, and also there's 40 minutes also varies time on what time of the year. The standard Zman we have, the Luach we have, the Zman for Motzei Shabbos varies between 33 and 41 minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So as we said, the time, the shortest time is around the time of the equinox.
Right.
It's actually not exactly. It's actually a couple of weeks before a bit complicated, but it's a couple of weeks. The shortest time is a couple of weeks before the spring equinox and a couple of weeks after the autumn equinox. There's a bit of a shift towards the winter.
Right.
That's the shortest time.
Right.
And the longest time would be in the middle of the summer, and we mentioned the middle of the winter would be somewhere between that, the time of the equinox and the middle of the summer.
You said because it sets at an angle, that's what makes it longer.
Yes. So we explained that the reason why it's shortest around the time of the equinox is because that's the straightest the sun sets.
Right.
Whereas in the middle of the summer, the winter, that's more of an angle, and therefore it takes longer for the sun to get to that low part of the horizon to make it happen. Okay. And we mentioned it depends on the time of the year and it depends on where you are in the world, right? And the way they work it out for the Zmanim, the calendars, when they work it out, is they worked out when in Eretz Yisrael at the time of the equinox, how low the sun is beneath the horizon, how many degrees it is beneath the horizon, and then they just use that. They enter that into the astronomical tables, and then they can tell you any time of the year in any place in the world. Right. What time it's going to be. Right. For example, the 72 minutes of Rabbeinu Tam is, if I remember correctly, 16.1 degrees. The sun is then 16.1 degrees beneath the horizon. 72 minutes after Shkia in March and September in Eretz Yisrael, it turns out 16.1 degrees. So then they can work it out any time in the world what Shittas Rabbeinu Tam for Motzei Shabbos. Okay. Fine, that's a summary. Okay, and then we mentioned also that how do we paskin in this Machlokes Rabbeinu Tam and the Goyim? We mentioned that both the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, and you also mentioned we talked about the Magen Avraham, he also here as well. They all hold like Rabbeinu Tam. They all hold like Rabbeinu Tam. So you have to bear in mind whenever they talk about Shkiut or Tzeisak Rechavim, they're talking about Shetzes Rabbeinu Tam. Whereas the Mishnah Berurah was the one who swung the world over to Shittas HaGoinim, the Gra. And now the vast majority of the world hold like the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, because of the Mishnah Berurah, and therefore we can always have to translate what the Mechaber says, always translate that to our times. He holds like Rabbeinu Tam. Mechaber holds like Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, that's basically the summary. Let's have now read the Mishnah, read the Shulchan Aruch, and we'll see how it applies to Chanukah. Okay, so it's now starting Siman Tov Reish Ayin Beis Zman Halakas Ner Chanukah. Okay, when do we land? Tov Reish Ayin Beis. Seif Aleph. Ein Madikin Ner Chanukah Koidem Shetishka Hachama. Elam Sof Shkia also. One doesn't light the Chanukah before Shkia, before the sun sets. I shouldn't say the word sunset because, as we said, he's not referring to sunset. Elam Sof Shkia also, at the end of the setting. Right? When again, if we explain this in the Shit of the Shulchan Aruch, is he's not talking about sunset. He's talking about the last rays of the sun setting. He's talking about Shit of Rabbeinu Tam. So you shouldn't light with the Shkia of Rabbeinu Tam, but rather one should light with the end of the Shkia of Rabbeinu Tam, meaning Tzeis HaKoychov of Rabbeinu Tam. So according to Shulchan Aruch, one should be lighting 72 minutes after what we define as after sunset, after our sunset. Lo ma'achrim, v'lo makdim. One shouldn't light early, one shouldn't light later. Okay? Let's stop here. Explain this, and then we'll continue later. We'll continue afterwards. We'll continue later. Let's continue. Let's have a look at the Mishnah Manasif Cotton Aleph. Im Sof Shkiyasa. Hainu Tzeis HaKoychovim. Right? The time one should light according to Shulchan Aruch, which is Sof Shkia, is referring to Tzeis HaKoychovim, right? Which means we explain Tzeis HaKoychovim of Rabbeinu Tam, which means when there are 3 medium-sized stars visible in the western sky, which is 72 minutes after sunset. She also overin v'shovin. Again, when I say 72 minutes, again we have to translate the 72 minutes to winter times. Again, 72 minutes is at the time of the equinox. Chanukah is never at the time of the equinox. Chanukah is always in the middle of the winter, so it's going to be a bit more than that. Okay. Why is that the best time? Because that's the time when people are going past on their way home. That's the time when people are returning home, and therefore that's the time when there's the optimal amount of persuminis, of publicizing the miracle. We'll see when we get to Tov Resh Ayin Tes. Now on Erev Shabbos, obviously we have to light earlier because this is a time when it's already also to do Malacha. One can't light a candle. Right? It's one of the Lamates Malachas to light a candle, right? And therefore one can't light a candle at that time on Erev Shabbos. So obviously on Erev Shabbos one would have to light earlier. Right? Aside from the machokas we've been talking about, which is really just as an introduction to this sugya of zmanim, of halachic times, when we actually talk about now halakas ner Chanukah, there's a different machlokes, which is when does one light, and the Shulchan Aruch holds like the Torah that one lights with Tzeis HaKoychovim. However, there are avol be'emes ish harba rishonim tzvilu the kavanas haGemara tchila shkia. Many rishonim hold that the Gemara, the time of the time that one's supposed to light is the beginning of shkia. Right? Which again we're continuing with Shittas Rabbeinu Tam. This is the beginning of Shkia according to Rabbeinu Tam is the second Shkia, 58.5 minutes after sunset. Right? That's approximately a quarter of an hour. Approximately a quarter of an hour, we said 13.5 minutes. It depends exactly how big a meal is. That's approximately Reva Shah, approximately a quarter of an hour Mikodim, right? Which is what we defined as 58.5 minutes. Right? So he's mentioned.
Are they talking about a Halacha count, like a Talmudic hour?
No.
Or 60-minute hour?
Yes.
Okay.
Right, Talmud, and the halachic hours are something else, right, which we're going to explain in a minute. We're going to get to and then talk about the second half of the Shulchan Aruch. When we go back to Shulchan Aruch at Sif Aleph, he's going to talk about something called Plaga Mincha, then I'll give you an introduction to halachic hours when they're relevant. Now it's nothing to do with halachic hours. Okay, now it's to do with how dark it is, which is how low the sun is beneath the horizon. Right. Which is dependent on the degrees of the sun beneath the horizon, which we then translate into minutes of, so it's easy to understand for us because we can't see how low the sun is beneath the horizon. There's nothing to do with halachic hours. Right. Okay. Okay. Fine. So we have these two opinions when to light. Does one light at Shkia or Tzeis HaKoychovim? At the moment, we've only been talking about Shittas Rabbeinu Tam. So these two opinions are 58.5 minutes after sunset or 72 minutes after sunset. Those are the two opinions. The Shulchan Aruch wrote 72 minutes after sunset. The Mishnah Berurah said there are many opinions who hold 58.5 minutes after sunset. Okay? So at the moment we're explaining the two shittas, the two opinions, but based on shittas Rabbeinu Tam. In a minute we're going to translate it to shittas Hagura. V'ayin b'bei halacha shebi'arnu shedel oisan hanoshim hanogim lispalel ma'av bizmanoi. Okay, for those people who are noyeg to daven mariv bizmanoi, meaning they're makpid to daven mariv after Tzeitzak Chovim, when it's night, not after nightfall. The best is to light before Mariv and this early Shkia. So they would be lighting Chanukah 58.5 minutes afterwards, and then at 72 minutes they would go and daven Mariv. You have to make sure, this is separate from what we haven't talked about yet, you should make sure to put in enough oil that it lights for half an hour after Tzeitzak Chovim. If he didn't light before nightfall, before Tzeitzak Chovim, then he should daven Mariv first. Because one always has two mitzvahs in front of him, one does always the mitzvah which is more frequent. Mariv is a mitzvah which is more frequent than Hadlakas Chanukah. If he lit Hadlakas Chanukah, he lit the lights before the time of Mariv, that's great. If he didn't, if he waited until the time of Mariv, now he has two mitzvahs in front of him, the mitzvah of Mariv and the mitzvah of lighting their Chanukah, and therefore he has to prioritize the more frequent mitzvah which is daven Mariv. He has to daven Mariv first. Explains why. He says, why should he daven Mariv first? It's the more frequent mitzvah. Also in Mariv we say Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is mitzvah min Torah, whereas Ner Chanukah is a mitzvah min Avonot. So it's another reason to prioritize davening Mariv. And one should know that even those who are accustomed to light after Tfilas Mariv, min hanochen shochinu al koponim hashemen b'soy chaneos kodem Tfilas Arvis, kadei she'emochen techach achar Tfilas Arvis. Even those who don't do like the Mishnah Berurah said, and they light before Hadlakas Ner Chanukah, right? Which is when I believe the Hasidim do that. They light before. Yeah, that they know. They light first. We daven first. We're going to see in a minute. Maybe we're going to light. The Mishnah will give us two options: either lighting before nightfall. If one waits for nightfall, then one should daven Mariv first. Right? That's what we do. We do like the Mishnah Berurah. Either light first, or we daven. If one waits for lighting until Tzeitzak Chovim, then one davens Mariv first. The Hasidim light before davening. So
but
if one lights
before Mariv, or
that's what, they light before Mariv.
So they're lighting after it's dark, but before Mariv.
Right. So then they should at least al koponim min hanochen shiochinu al koponim Hashem b'soy chaneros kodem Tfilas Arvis. It is correct for them at least to prepare the wicks and the oil before Mariv. It shouldn't be that they come home after Mariv and then they start preparing everything. They should have it all ready so that when they come home they can light straight away. Because so that it will all be ready for them to light straight after Mariv. If they prepare everything after Mariv, if they prepare all afterwards, it could be they're going to miss this half an hour slot of lighting after nightfall. Okay. No, we haven't done yet. We haven't seen this yet in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so to summarize, when should one light the halacha? There's two minhagim. There are those who light at nightfall, there are those who light at Shkia. In Chutz La'aretz, if I understand correctly, most people light at Tzeitzak Chovim.
I think so.
And therefore, those who daven Mariv early, daven Mariv early. Those who daven Umakpid to daven Mariv Bizmanoi, will daven Mariv at Bizmanoi at the time of Tzeitzak Chovim, and then will light straight afterwards. And they should therefore have their wicks prepared and have everything ready to light straight away when they come home. As we mentioned, Hasidim do it the other way around, the light first and then daven Marav afterwards. Here in Eretz
But they're
Yisrael,
not lighting at Shkia, they're lighting it too.
yes, that's correct.
So they're pushing Marav back a little bit in order to light.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. In Eretz Yisrael, there are many who are noheg to light at Shkia. At Shkia. Again, we're translating everything to Ashkia, meaning sunset. Ashkia.
So the sky is still very light at that point
That's
when they're
correct.
lighting.
The sun is just, the ball of the sun has just disappeared beneath the horizon. The sun is still very light. It's beginning to get dark. It already begins to get dark even before the sun sets. Right? Already in the late afternoon, it's already beginning to get dark. It is beginning to get dark, but it's still very bright outside. The sun hasn't.
Right.
The sun is just set, and many light then. There are also many that say that one should light at the shkia that says Chum the Gro, which is around 13.5 minutes or 15 minutes, around that time after sunset. And then it's already considerably much darker. It's well within the half an hour period after Shkia. It's before you get into the problem of Mariv, because no one davened Mariv before 20 minutes. Even as no one really davened Mariv before 18, even 18 maybe the earliest you'll find people davening Mariv. So you don't have the problem of having to daven Mariv earlier. I personally light in that time. But, that's generally the time when people are lighting. There's a few different options. There's no time. Can't say that any time is correct and other times are wrong. Either at the time of Shkia, people light at Shkia, or people light at the Gro, which is in this period of 13.5 to 18 minutes after Shkia. Those are the best times to light.
I don't think we've learned yet that the candles have to burn for 30 minutes.
No, that's right. We haven't seen it yet. The Mishnah just added in here in parentheses. We haven't seen that in Halacha.
This difference in Shkias and Tzeitzei Kochavim is going to have an afkamina of 30 minutes of when.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Correct. Okay. Let's now we're gonna start with the Shulchan Aruch. Let's give a Hagdama to the to halachic times, and then we'll read the Shulchan Aruch. He's going to talk about something called Plag HaMincha. Okay. First of all, let's define what is Plag HaMincha. Plag in Aramaic means half. Okay. Halfway through the time of Mincha. What's halfway through the time of Mincha mean? Answer is like this. There's something called Mincha Gedola and something called Mincha Ketana. Mincha Gedola, Mincha Ketana. Mincha Gedola is defined as half an hour after midday, half an hour after Chatzois.
6.5 hours.
That's correct. And Mincha Ketana is 9.5 minutes 9.5 minutes into the day. Right? 9.5 hours into the day. So okay, Mincha Gedola is at 6.5 hours into the day. Mincha Gedola is 6.5 hours. Mincha Ketana is 9.5 hours. Okay, where do they get the names from? Mincha, the earliest time they would bring the Korban Tomid. The Korban Tomid, Mincha is in place of the Korban Tomid. That's Tfilas Mincha is in place of the Korban Tomid Shel Bein HaArbaim. Shachar is in place of the Korban Tomid Shel Shachar, the morning offering. Mincha is in place of the afternoon offering, and Mariv is in place of the fats and the limbs which were offered up over the night. So the Tomid Shel Bein HaArbaim was brought, which is the Mincha is in place of it. Was the earliest time it was brought? It was 6.5 hours into the day. That's the earliest time. They would bring it on that. When would they bring it that early? They would only bring it that early on Erev Pesach, which chol on Erev Shabbos, which fell on Erev Shabbos. If Erev Pesach falls on Erev Shabbos, because then most korbanos have to be brought before the Korban Tomid. Anyone who wants to bring a korban, you bring it before the Korban Tomid Shel Bein HaArbaim. If you miss the Korban Tomid, the slaughter, they already brought the Korban Tomid. If they brought already the Korban Tomid, the afternoon Korban Tomid, it's too late. You'd have to bring your korban always before the afternoon korban, except for the one exception
between the two.
Between the two. That's right. Except there's one exception, which is the Korban Pesach. Korban Pesach is brought after the Korban Tomid. It's brought afterwards, and therefore, when Erev Pesach fell on Erev Shabbos, when there was a lot of lachas, there were many Korban Pesachs, and they had to bring them all before night, and obviously, and any day you have to bring before night. But here you also had to be tzoyle. They had to roast the Korban Pesach also before night on Erev Pesach and Erev Shabbos. So therefore they would bring the Korban Tomid as early as possible, which was at the 6.5 hour slot. 6.5 hours into the day, which is half an hour after midday, that's when they bring it. So this is the earliest time one can bring the Korban Tomid, and it's called Mincha Gedola.
A regular Erev Pesach that's not Shabbos, it just has to be shefted before
that's right.
Before Shkia?
Yes, the regular Korban Pesach they would roast it at night. They would eat it fresh. Roast it at night and they would eat it at night. Okay. So Machlok is actually in the Mishnah. Rabbi Eliezer, you can even roast the Korban Pesach on Shabbos at night. You can. But we don't. We pass on like Rabbi Kiva that it's not Teicha Shabbos. You can do it before, and everyone has to do it before.
So Shel's Manios.
Okay. Yes, I haven't said Mincha Gedola. Mincha Gedola is not the latest time of bringing the Korban Mincha. One could bring the Korban Tomid until Shkia, but it's the latest time it's the time when they would generally bring it. The time when they bring it on a normal day was Mincha Ketana. On a regular day they bring Mincha Ketana. We mentioned the Korban Pesach, they pushed it earlier to the earliest time. On a regular day they brought it in 9.5 hours. So that's called Mincha Ketana. Okay? And now, between Mincha Ketana and Shkia, Mincha Ketana is 9.5 hours. Okay? Shkia is at the end of the day, which is obviously 12 hours. Okay? The day is 12 hours, night is 12 hours. Okay? So that halfway period between Mincha Ketana and and Shkia and sunset, halfway between 9.5 and 12 hours is 10 3/4 hours. This is called Plag HaMincha. Halfway through the Mincha. It's halfway between Mincha Gedola and Tzeis HaKoychovim, Plag HaMincha.
So an hour and a quarter before Shkia.
That's right, an hour and a quarter. That's right. Now, this hour and a quarter this is where we bring in halachic hours. This hour and a quarter is not a real hour, it's a halachic hour. Meaning, as the times of the day are from sunrise to sunset, right? And we've just split up the day into 9.5, 6.5 hours, 9.5 hours, 12, it's all, right? It's not real hours, it's hours between Shkia and Tzeis HaKoychovim. Right, which is what they call Sha'is Manios.
It's not 60-minute hours.
Right, it's part of the day. That's a good way of defining it. Right? Right? When we say Mincha Gedola is 9.5 hours in the day, we don't really mean Mincha Ketana is 9.5 hours. We don't really mean 9.5 hours. We mean 9.5 parts of 12 of the day. Right? So therefore, Plag HaMincha is going to be 10 3/4 twelfths of the way into the day. Right? Which we call halachic hours, Sha'is Manios, right? Which literally translates as seasonal hours, right? It's going to depend again where you are in the world and where you are, and of course what time of year it is, in order to divide it between Shkia and between sunrise and sunset. Just to add in one extra complication, we'll summarize all this tomorrow again. Just add in one extra complication, because you asked yesterday, how does the Mogen Avram fit in? Okay? To add in one extra complication, there's a machlokes if when we calculate all these times which are dependent on Sha'is Manios, right? Which includes also the Zman of Kriyat Shema and the Zman of Tefillah, all these different Zmanim. Do we take the start of the day as sunrise and the end of the day is sunset, which would be Shkia, sunrise, which is Neitz HaChamo, and sunset, which is Shkia? Or do we take the beginning of the day as Alois HaShachar, when the first rays of the sun come up, and the end of the day as Tzeis HaKoychovim, when the star is visible? Right? And that's what we know that the Machlokes Gra and Mogen Avram. People often refer to it as the Machlokes Gra and Mogen Avram. Right? The Gra says to take it from sunrise to sunset. That's how we get the Zman of Kriyat Shema of the Gra. And the Mogen Avram says to take it from Alois HaShachar, when you have the first rays of the sun, and daybreak. From daybreak until Tzeis HaKoychovim, nightfall, when you see the 3 stars. That's how we get the Zman of Kriyat Shema of the Mogen Avram.